Greetings, adventure. Welcome to the D20 Academy podcast. I'm Shiloh.
I'm Gabriel, and this week is episode 56, where we break down the 5-room dungeon.
Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about the 5-room dungeon, which is kind of this concept that's been circulating in the community. It's kind of like an unofficial connection to D&D as well. Basically, it's a method in which you can build dungeons, you can build adventures, all that kind of stuff, and we're going to break it all down here for you in this episode.
Yes, and as always, before we get into it, our Instagram is at D20_Academy. You can message us there to get into our Discord server, where we talk about things, highlight homebrew from the community, answer your questions, and that kind of thing. So message us on Instagram to get into that.
Hey, guys. Welcome. Welcome.
You're welcome. Welcome.
Yeah.
Never mind, that doesn't go where I thought it. Yeah,
Hey.
Hello.
5-room dungeon.
It feels like it's been forever.
Yep. It's just last week, but
yeah, come here often? To the 5-room dungeon?
Yeah.
Boom!
That was good.
Alright.
Wait, okay, and remember, Gabe, this whole episode will be making fantastic segues.
Of course.
Get excited for that, get ready for that. It's gonna be a really good time. Also, something that we didn't mention in the intro, we have an actual play series. It's called Unwelcome Spirits, and the finale, the 5th and final session, is coming out Friday this week.
Yes, just trying to get the timeline in my head.
Yeah.
This is being released.
Yeah. We record things in, all over the place and stuff, so.
Yeah.
But by the time you're listening to this episode, it's not out yet. But it will be on Friday.
But it will be out.
But it is
Friday.
It is recorded. Whatever.
It's also coming out Friday. Some good music that I will highlight in our Discord, which we have a channel for music suggestions. Bada bing, bada boom.
Yeah. Bada bing,
in
bada
our
boom.
Discord, because
And
I
hey,
have music suggestions.
Also, I was looking at the stats. The stats of our podcast episodes.
Stats.
On Anchor, which is the program that I use to upload podcasts and get them distributed and stuff. Anywho, you can kind of look at some different statistics, and you can look at how far people listen. And nobody listens to the closing, which is totally fine, I understand that. But something you may not know in the closing is we tell you what next week's episode is going to be. So by the way, if you're ever curious, we do actually mention in the closing, I know a lot of people don't listen to that part, but by the way, if you do wait to the end, our closings are just a minute long, but we do mention the next week's episode, so if you ever are curious about that, stick around to the end, or just, skip to the end. Don't do that. It's a great episode. You're going to want to listen to the whole thing. Anywho, what's the 5-room dungeon, Gabe?
Alright, the 5-room dungeon is not just a thing for creating dungeons, as the name might make you think. It's more of a format for building adventures, dungeons, challenges for your players. It's split up into 5 rooms, as the name would have you think. And each 5-room presents different obstacles, different events that happen in the dungeon. So, obviously, we start with room 1. Which is the entrance and guardian.
Yeah, entrance and guardian, entrance with guardian. There's a couple different ways, by the way. The 5-room dungeon is I don't really know where it started, but it's... I know there's a guy, Johnny for roleplaying. He has a newsletter and stuff. He's someone in the community. Great. I signed up for his newsletter and stuff, and he's really fantastic. He does a weekly thing. Great tips. He's a really great resource, by the way. But I know he kind of perpetrated the idea, at least made it popular. I'm not sure if he came up with it. I don't want to give credit because I'm not exactly sure where this came from. A lot of people have talked about it in their own ways, kind of given their own interpretations, and that's kind of what we're going to be doing as well here. But it's something in the community. It's not an official thing, though. I know D&D for 4th edition, they did take it one time and made an adventure, based off a module based off of the 5-room dungeon or something. But anyway, it's basically, there's 5 different rooms per se. The classic example is a dungeon for D&D. And there's 5 different rooms that you go through. But like Gabe was saying,
Yeah.
this can be translated to other things like adventures and stuff, and we're going to talk about that more near the end, like translating this into the different ways you're going to be doing things. It's pretty cool. I've never really talked to Gabe about it, really gotten someone else's opinion. I've just looked at it myself and kind of have my own opinions that I've kind of formulated about it. But it is kind of one way.
Kind of thing that both of us have done.
Yeah, it's a method in which you build things. I don't really have a lot of experience. I've never really used this before. I have my own method, typically that I like to use when building adventures. And I have not really built a lot of dungeons, I'm going to be honest here. But yeah, I think it's pretty cool. So yeah, let's talk about this first room, in quotations, this first challenge, I guess, which is the entrance and the guardian.
Yeah. So, with a lot of things, you want to have like an entrance, like conflict, something that has stopped this, whatever it's a dungeon or some sort of objective that the players are after, they're going after in this adventure. Why hasn't it been done before? Is the entrance hard to find? Is it require a key that like people haven't found before? They don't have the key. They don't know what it is. Is it a dungeon that has a guardian in front of it? Is it a house that they're trying to break into that nobody knows where it is?
Yeah. Basically, this first room is just, getting in. the challenge, of actually getting into the dungeon or getting into the house or whatever it is. We'll just stick to dungeon for these purposes. But yeah, you have to figure out, like, if there's nothing here and it's pretty easy to walk into, like, why, why hasn't, whatever the goal of this is, ready, if it's to kill a boss or if it's to steal an artifact or to save someone or whatever, like, there has to be a reason, right? Someone's obviously trying to protect something, someone's obviously trying to guard, against, whatever the heroes are trying to accomplish. So maybe it's trapped, maybe there's an actual guardian, there's actual guards or, guard dogs or something like that. Yeah, maybe it's hidden. Maybe you have to actually find the entrance because it's actually hidden. Maybe you have to say melon.
That's some sort of special key or ceremony, ritual that you need to get used to gain entrance.
Yep. Yeah, so that's the first.
Yep.
That's the first room.
Alrighty.
All right, that's the first room. Is the entrance with the guardian? Okay, that one's pretty self-explanatory.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, pretty
That's
simple.
That's kind of like the theme of this whole thing. That's kind of like the theme of this whole format. So, sticking with that as we go to the second room, keeping like simple ideas, but you can change it and adapt it to whatever you want. The second room is where you introduce some sort of puzzle or roleplay challenge to your players. This is to break up the pacing of your dungeon crawl or whatever adventure you're going on.
Yeah.
Where perhaps in the first room, at the start, the entrance, you have some sort of challenge where you have to defeat a guardian or to pass this, whatever the entrance hazard is. You get into the second room where there's some sort of puzzle or there is some sort of roleplay encounter or challenge that players have to work together to get past that requires something other than just their steel.
Yep. Yeah. So this is really cool. Definitely when it comes to like what you were saying, Gabe, pacing, like, like a lot of examples, the entrance is probably a combat encounter between with whoever is guarding this location, this dungeon or whatever. Typically, some sort of like robot, golem, or whatever it is. And you want to break up that pacing. You just don't want to go through just murdering in every room. I think the one thing that's really cool about the 5-room dungeon is just the way that it breaks up pacing and it forces you to present and come up with a bunch of different kinds of challenges that kind of cater to all different kinds of players and classes or whatever it is. So I think that's one thing that's really cool.
As it turns out, different people want different things.
Yeah. I think what a lot of
Surprising, I know.
what a lot of dungeons, the trap a lot of dungeons fall into, pun intended, is that it's just like murderedness. You just go from room to room,
With
just
the trap
killing
there in
everybody.
between.
Sorry.
With the trap in between.
Yeah,
It's like
also
murder,
with like
murder,
a dumb
murder.
pit trap.
Spike trap.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay, wait. This is not the time for me to rant about traps. Yeah, but like, you know, I've ran quite a few D&D dungeons. I've gone through a couple D&D dungeons as a player. Obviously, this does not just correlate to D&D, but that's like the most popular format. That, you know, dungeons are literally a part of the name, so it's pretty integral to the system. And a lot of what I found is it's just like murderness, right, Gabe? I ran a couple dungeons in our D&D campaign, and one I made myself, but another one, or the other ones that I took from other modules or whatever. I don't know if you remember them super clearly, Gabe.
Yeah.
But
Not like
there was a lot of
super clearly,
murderness.
but I do remember.
Just a lot of murderness.
Which by itself isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just that there are players who will enjoy other things more than that. And sometimes if you're going through, depending on the length of your dungeon, or how long or complicated it is, how many sessions you guys are in there, some people will get bored with just going from room to room murdering things.
Yeah,
and that can like mess with plotting and like what's the word I'm looking for? Pacing.
Yeah, I think pacing is a big thing as well. Take a moment to slow down, chill. Actually, maybe it's not slow down. Maybe, you know, the entrance was like trying to find the hidden symbol on the entryway, and you have to touch that symbol to open the door. That was probably that's kind of a slow process. But once you get into room 2, you need to pick up the pacing a bit. But this maybe not time for a combat encounter, so maybe it's a puzzle, but with a timer. A sand timer is in the corner that starts to go off. You know, maybe the panels beneath their feet are beginning to fall away. You can adjust the pacing how you want, but you still just want to break it up so it's not just like straight like fighting, murder, stuff like that. But yeah, so that's what the second room is. So, you know, puzzle or role playing, depending on what it is. You know, maybe there's like the gatekeeper dude in here. And you're like, you have to bribe him, you have to trick him. That's kind of a role-playing thing.
Answer a riddle.
Yeah, maybe it's a puzzle, maybe it's a riddle. You know, maybe it's too many guards are stationed here for you to handle. And you have to find a way to smartly role-play your way around, you know, making a trade with them, manipulating them in some way to letting you pass. You know, or in your classic dungeon, some kind of puzzle, some kind of riddle maybe. Stuff like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. That's room 2.
After you've found some way to introduce some sort of roleplay or puzzle encounter challenge, you then move on to this third room. And keep in mind again, so I want to reiterate this, these don't necessarily have to be rooms. It's just the name. It's just the name. They don't have to be rooms. This could literally all be one long hall.
Yeah.
It could be whatever you want. Doesn't have to be a room. Doesn't have to be a dungeon. I know we're repeating ourselves. Sorry. All right. Third room. This is where you get to like spice things up a little bit. You know. This is where you introduce some sort of trick or setback to the players to add to the tension of this adventure or dungeon.
Yeah. It's something that kind of this is actually the one that's the least clear to me. But it's something that kind of puts him on the down low, kind of starts the decline. Maybe in a way the stakes are raised, the players lose something, they are tricked in some way. This is really hard to kind of articulate and also just to kind of run, because it sucks when you like force something on the players that's out of their control, and that's like that's a kind of some sort of failure that they experience or some kind of loss that they experience. Like, that's not cool to railroad that in. So it's a little hard to kind of work around and figure out. But like if you think about like the classic like story structure, right? It's like at first the story just moving in a straight horizontal line as we're getting exposition. Then the hero is introduced to the journey. Obi-Wan takes him into space or whatever. Then we go on and up as the action rises or whatever, all that kind of stuff. And we're going up and then we start going down because they lose something, they experience some sort of a loss. Alderaan is blown up before they're able to get there, or it's kind of that kind of concept is this third room. Before they get to the climax, before they get to facing off against the big baddie or whatever it is, there's some kind of like trick. They get outsmarted. They get set back in some way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. And so, for example, this could be they came into this dungeon to find a certain artifact that they needed for their quest, and they think they get it in room 3. They get it, they touch it, like they grab onto it, and about to leave, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is a trick. This wasn't the real artifact. Look, the wall's closed, and they're trapped inside." Something like that, where you can incorporate any sort of thing. You can incorporate combat, you can incorporate puzzles into this, but what you want to do with this room, your goal with this room, is to introduce some sort of setback or any sort of trick or trap that increases the tension of this whole adventure.
Yeah, I think that like artifact example is like really good. Like you find a thing, you find the chest that has the artifact you're looking for, but nope, you don't have the key, so you're gonna have to go further in to get the key. Maybe you find it, you enter the room, and there's the artifact. There is the hostage, whatever you're trying to get. And then right as you're approaching, another treasure hunter, another villain, whatever, appears, takes him, pulls him in further into the dungeon or whatever, right? So it's like you're so close, you're almost there, but they're just out of reach. Everything, it's pulled just out of reach again. That kind of thing, I think, is really cool. And an example that's not a dungeon, let's say, you're going to get this artifact. You're on a treasure hunt, okay? And you're the artifact's in front of you, but an opposing treasure hunting team appears and snatches it right before you're able to get them, and then dash off. And now you're forced to chase them. And then the next rooms of the dungeon we're about to talk about, in quotations, are the next steps of like now that they have to face off against this group, this other treasure hunting group or whatever, right? So that's what this one is. There's some sort of little mini boss here that you fight who's guarding the thing, but right before he dies, he touches it and teleports it somewhere else or whatever. That kind of concept is what we're talking about in this room.
Yes. It could also just be some sort of role-playing encounter where you get there and instead of the artifact being there and another adventurer comes and takes it, there's a key to get to the artifact there, and there's another adventurer there, and then they have to have some sort of role-playing encounter where they try and convince that other treasure hunter to side with them and work together, or some other role-playing encounter you can come up with.
Yeah. Exactly.
Instead, this is literally just like a framework. You can add things of your own in here. You can add combat encounters. You can add role-playing encounters. You can add puzzles in here. This is just a format to like a plot out an adventure.
Yes, sir. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Room number 4. Climax. Big climax. This is the penultimate event. This is the obligatory scene. This is the showdown, right? You've passed through these various challenges and pieces.
The Motown Showdown.
Yep. Sure. So in a classic, typical dungeon, adventure, this is like the boss fight.
Yeah. So after you've defeated the mini-boss or the challenges before, you get to the end, essentially. At least the climax.
Yeah, this is the big what everything's been building
Big
towards.
baddie.
Yes, what everything's been building towards. Yes.
The lich at the end of the tunnel.
The lich at the end of the tunnel, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so go ahead.
You know what this is. It's the big baddie. It's a climax of the adventure of the dungeon. Some sort of boss fight, some sort of big encounter, and there's a bunch of ways you can spice this up. But you already have an idea of what this is.
Yeah. But this is like the most like important. You want to spend the most time on like making this really fun, really really interesting and cool and fun. I'm thinking of an example that we had in our campaign. Though I didn't use the 5-room dungeon, they were kind of like following this kind of mystery thing, investigating, trying to find this guy. Eventually, they encountered this boss at the big climax of this little adventure plotline. But like the whole battle took place in like this inverted D4 where gravity was all hard to explain. But it was like a really really interesting. It was kind of confusing, honestly. I may have gone overboard. But
it was a little bit confusing.
It was also because then also at that point everyone like basically had the ability to fly because they were pretty high levels, so gravity stuff didn't really matter. But anyway, yeah, so it was like this really interesting set piece with like this different gravity, and you can walk on the various walls that then turn into the floor, and it's all really interesting. There's like a couple. There's the big boss, but he also had some minions that were helping him. There were some pits of acid. There were pillars, so you could spice it up, make it really fun, make it interesting as well, because this is the big moment.
Yeah, this is where you tie in things from without the dungeon so far. So perhaps in the first room when they defeated the Guardian, some sort of alarm was set off that the PC saw, and so the bad guy obviously knows that the party is coming, or perhaps like Shiloh was saying, there's pits of acid, there's this, there's that, there's minions, there's traps, there's special powers, abilities.
Yeah.
Or it's example of the best. The bad guy has some sort of unusual way of trying to settle things or deal with the party through like a wager or a duel or a bet, something like that. It changes the boss fight.
Yeah. Instead, it's a fight. It's a poker game, where the bet is whatever the point of the dungeon or adventure is. The lives of the villagers or the artifact or whatever. Yeah, like that. That's
how
pretty
you
cool.
play poker is you fight each other for the cards. Boom.
Wow.
This is the content you come here for.
Okay, that's room 4.
Next
big climax,
ideas.
pretty self-explanatory. This whole thing kind of is nice and simple. Okay, now you might think, what? That's only room. How is there one more room? That's the climax of.
We've already done
adventure.
everything we need to. But wait, there's more.
There's always more, you guys.
Beyond room 4.
Yeah.
Room 5, actually. That's what comes after.
Nice segue.
Mm-hmm.
That was really good.
Room 5 is where the players come upon their reward, some sort of revelation, or plot twist. Alright? This is where you can... Obviously, you can use this room, this thing, as a reward to the players for completing the dungeon, some sort of revelation in their story and their plots that twists things.
Yeah. Now, this has varying levels of intensity, okay?
Yes.
On one end, this is a very minor. This 5th thing is quite minor. And it's just like, you just find now the truth behind whatever a thing was, or what a mystery was, or something. You just find the documents that prove something. That's the player's like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. A differing level, it's a hook to the next adventure, to the next major plot arc. Unless this is the final adventure of your campaign, do this. hook them into the next part of the plot line. Okay, they defeated this guy, but turns out he was just a puppet to this other thing. Turns out this artifact that you thought you needed is just one of 4 that you actually need, or whatever it is, and it hooks you into the next adventure, the next dungeon. And then
or another way, it's some sort of twist.
Yeah, that's
this artifact is actually an evil alien artifact that now that we have completed it or obtained it, we've doomed the world. Or
yes, in the most extreme version, this is like an actual like crazy twist that maybe leads to a whole new encounter or a whole new thing or whatever. A really big crazy twist, but it can also just be like a hook into the next adventure, or just be like a little, so that's the answer to the mystery that we were wondering. Just a bit of reward, a revelation. But here's the thing. Yes, reward your players. Okay, they just worked through this dungeon. They just worked through this adventure. Give them what they want. Also, what they came here for, in a sense. But you also do want to hook them on, right? You want to keep them interested. Continue the mystery as well. So you don't just want to just give them the thing they came here for exactly and be like, there you go. That's it. You don't want to do that, but you also don't want to be like, I know you just worked really hard for this magical sword, but it's not actually here. It actually isn't real. It's just a legend, and you just wasted all your time for nothing. Don't also do that. I mean, it's even mean what they do in Super Mario Bros., where you come, and then you go through the whole castle, and they're like, no, Princess Peach is in the other castle. And you're like, what?
How many castles are there?
Yeah, but if you do like that kind of thing, like, what you came here for, actually in a different location, but here's something that might help you. Right?
Yeah. If you do go with that twist, you still have to reward your players a bit.
Yeah. Here's a prisoner.
It is disappointing to get through something with a specific goal, and at the end, it's just a trick. It's not there.
Yeah. Here's a prisoner that this BBG had that you just defeated, and that now he will help you, and he's a cool NPC who has some cool power or whatever. Even though what you came here for maybe isn't here, right? That's what Room 5 is of this dungeon.
And that's it. If you've done your counting, you've learned those numbers 1 through 5.
Mm-hmm.
You realize this is the 5th room.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, if you listen to our Mythic Odysseys of Theros review, which you should, great book. Also, maybe might be the world of our next actual play series. Hey, this Room 5 is the mythic action, by the way. That's a great example. So if you know what we're talking about, in part 2 of that review, in Theros, they introduce a new kind of way of building monsters, which is when the monster dies, when you reduce them to 0 hit points, a new thing happens. So maybe they regain their hit points and then now gain a new arm, or whatever. In one of the examples, bring him to 0 hit points just broke his armor. So now all his armor is broken up, and now you have to destroy his 4 hearts. That's kind of what the Room 5 is. So if you know what we're talking about. Or
perhaps, like, at the end, like, the bad guy is resurrected and is now going to hunt the players. Yeah, some sort of twist, like, after they defeated, perhaps, like, they don't get into the combat encounter then, like, he broke his armor and he's going to run away for now. Or something like that.
Yep. Exactly. So that's kind of an example of what Room 5 is. But there you go. Hey, that's all 5 rooms. Entrance with Guardian, puzzle role-playing challenge, trick or setback, big climax, reward revelation. All right.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, it is. It's nice and simple. Gabe, what are your initial thoughts here?
All right. So we've been saying this whole time, like, it's simple. This is a format, and I think that is pretty telling of both its strengths and weaknesses. As a format that's very simple, it can be easy to use, easy to make, easy to understand, but it's also easy to understand, predictable, simple.
Yeah.
You know? With a simple format like this, you can use it, but I would always suggest spicing things up. One of the most important things, and this is stated in like this outline here, is that like when you're going through this dungeon, you're making this 5-room dungeon, whatever, make sure that you incorporate your theme, the theme for your dungeon, the setting, the goal, into these things, and personalize it for yourself and for your players,
Yeah.
Don't just, okay, there is a big golem guarding that doesn't have to deal with the dungeon at all. And we have some sort of puzzle here. And that's not related to the theme of the campaign.
Yeah.
You always have to change these things to fit your own setting and your own theme.
Yeah. I think it's not... Listen, it's not horrible if not everything is connected and stuff. Okay?
No.
The one thing that they're talking about here is just like... definitely like tabletop role-playing games. It's just like... Players want to feel accomplished. They want to feel like they're working towards something. They want to feel that satisfaction of accomplishing things. And you have this goal of this dungeon, right? That's something that they don't really talk about. Which I'll get into a second of how I would kind of amend this and change this. But like you have this goal: if save the hostage, get the artifact, kill the boss, whatever it is. And you come to the entrance and there is like a golem guarding there. Like, okay, that's fine. If you could have it more attached to the story, give a clue that from bypassing this first entrance here, there's a clue that will help you defeat the bad guy in room 4 or whatever it is. That's really awesome. That's really stepping up your game. But it's still fine. The point is that there's just challenges that the players are overcoming. There's things that they are doing to get to their goal. Because if all these rooms were just empty rooms, then they would just walk through these, get what they want, and walk out. And that's not, fun or interesting. You need to have a sense of progression and accomplishment, of them overcoming obstacles to get to their goal. And what Gabe is saying is that this is cool because it provides you with, like, how you can look at your different obstacles. Maybe you want one to be a puzzle. The one after that, you can have it be a trick or whatever. But what Gabe is saying is that, like, you want to step it up as well, If you can, you want to try and make things connected, make things relevant, because that will really make your dungeon, your adventure, whatever it is, really, really powerful, and, just make your players even enjoy it even more.
Yeah. Also, another thing to keep in mind is if you are planning to run multiple dungeons or adventures with this format, is to perhaps, like, mix up the order a little bit. Or, like, mix how things work a little bit, so that it isn't always predictable for each player, okay, we start with the Guardian. That's pretty, like, but this time it's the players have to form some sort of ritual instead of a Guardian at the entrance,
Yeah.
And then you get to the second room, instead of just the same chess puzzle that they had before, it's some other sort of trick. Or perhaps, like, that second room is instead a combat encounter. So you're mixing up the order of things a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the more you do this, the more you'll get comfortable and like figure out your own method and figure out your own rhythm on how you think pacing works, what works best for your party. You're like, maybe I'm just going to throw in a couple more combat encounters than suggested just because that's my gaming group. That's what we love or whatever, right? So you're going to, by doing this, over and over, you're going to be able to pick up things and develop your own way of doing things in your own system, and all that kind of cool stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So this is all really nice and cool. Here's, okay. This is okay. I think that you can take this a step further, and here's what I do. Here's what I would do. These 5 rooms is like, how do I say this? These are like, it's like you get to the, how do I even say this? It's kind of like this is one encounter almost. in the sense that this might not be the whole adventure. What am I trying to say here? I'm sorry, this is confusing. Okay. This whole thing, this 5-room dungeon, is like one session. The way I'm looking at it, it seems kind of like that. 1 or 2 sessions, maybe, you get through these things. Depending on how long your sessions are. But usually your adventures are not one session long. 1 or 2 sessions long, right? Usually they're longer. The ones that I run, each of my plot lines is typically between 10 to 15 sessions. Each of my different adventures that's the way I like to do it. But like what I do, and I talk more about this in my Game Masters course, which is coming out fairly soon, a month or 2, is I split my stories into 3 segments, 3 acts, and like you apply this to each of the acts, basically. You know what I mean? So like the first part is like let's just say the whole goal of the adventure is to deal with this evil warlord. Okay? But here's the thing. You were given this quest by whatever, so-and-so. But you maybe don't know where this guy is. You don't have the power, the resources to break into his fortress, confront him yet. And so the first act of this 3-act thing, you run this 5-room dungeon. So you're given the lead, hey, we know there's something there's a weakness that he has. And this NPC has this information. Okay? And here's where this NPC is. So that's your first lead. This is the first act of this adventure. And the party goes to go find that NPC. And then you implement the 5-room dungeon. Okay? Hey, turns out the NPC is kidnapped by a bunch of bandits. You go to the bandit hideout, 5-room dungeon. The reward at the end that we're talking about, hey, you found the NPC. He gives you the weakness of this evil warlord guy that you were looking for. But then, that's just not enough yet. Now you need to find the location of this evil warlord. Or, here's a different example. Maybe you need to you need to deal with his right-hand man. Because if you face him and his right-hand man together, there's no way you're gonna live through that battle. So you got to deal with his right-hand man first. Okay, well, his right-hand man right now is on a mission to this place. So you can go find him there. So second act of this adventure, you go there, 5-room dungeon. At the end, you have a boss battle with this guy, this right-hand man. Then you find the information that you need to go finally confront the warlord. You go confront the warlord. You turn his fortress into a 5-room dungeon. Great. Room 4, you fight the warlord. You kill him. Part 5 of this, maybe there's a twist of some sort, and then also maybe a hook that brings you further in. Hey, by the way, this evil warlord, he was taking his powers from some sort of pact with a dark being. And this dark being is actually seeming to pop up all over the place. And you have to go now investigate this cult or whatever, and that leads you into the next adventure. But that's kind of what I'm trying to say here, is that you can implement like this 5-room dungeon into like the different parts of your plotline adventure. Okay, that was a lot. Did that make sense, though? Wow.
Sorry, I just woke up. What?
Yeah, okay. Sorry about that. But yeah.
Yeah. What he said.
Yeah. But basically the point is that, like, this is not a whole adventure. But it can be. If you really embellish each of these, this could be a whole adventure, too. And it also provides you with a way of plotting out and pacing a whole adventure as well.
Yeah. I think the point of, like, this entire episode is that here's an idea for a format for how to do things. Take this, take other formats, find what works for you.
Yeah.
That's essentially that's the moral of the story here. Find what works for you. Whether it be what rules work for you, what format works for you, how pacing works for you and your party. In role-playing games, find what works for you.
Yeah. And, this is just one of many methods you can use, right? No one's saying that this is the best way to do it or that this is a horrible way to do anything. But if you're someone who is a GM or someone who finds themselves having difficulty, where do you start? How do you plot out this dungeon? How do you plot out this section of the adventure? You have no idea. You're like, okay, I know the goal. I know the heroes are trying to get this artifact, trying to save this hostage, but I don't even know how to get him there. If you're someone like that, then this can be a great tool for you to just look at, okay, let me just break it down into 5 simple steps. And each of these steps has a different thing. One is a puzzle, one is a big fight, that kind of thing. So this could just be really helpful for you, if you're someone like that who would like this structure, and this structure could help you. For sure, research this more. We kind of just scratched the surface of this, but there's a ton of like sample 5-room dungeons for you that you can find online for free. All kinds of stuff. Yeah. Great. Gabe, anything else you want to say? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So you, Gabe, you're kind of a newer GM. You GM'd our actual play series, which is fantastic. Hey guys, you should go listen to it. But for you, as kind of a newer GM, what does this like mean to you? Like, is this something that you maybe want to try, or?
This is something that I might try for a single dungeon, see how it works. For a quick, like, 1-session thing, I think. I would probably change it a little bit, just that first time I'd try it. I'd probably change things a little bit. I just like to adapt things to how I can make things. I think it's a great starting place for you to just get an idea of perhaps what your session and your planning should look like, how your pacing should look like. It's really, I think the greatest value here is to give you an idea of a format, an idea of how to structure things, that you can then say, like, oh, this is how this person's structured. This is like, this leads the players to do this and this and this. And adds variety. It deals with this part of pacing. Then you adapt it to your own.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would be definitely open to trying this and to experimenting with it, as long as you keep in mind your goals, your theme, your setting, and adapt it.
Yeah, and as an experienced GM, I've someone who's been GMing for years and years. I think what's really cool about this is kind of putting words to like what like you kind of have figured out. What I've kind of figured out on my own. Just as a GM on like how to structure, not really dungeons because I can't say I've made a lot of dungeons, but like adventures and stuff, and like this kind of series of challenges. This is like actually putting it into words and giving it a structure that like I've kind of figured out. I just haven't realized that that's what it is. You know what I mean? So that's really cool that someone was able to put, to break down what exactly they were using to build their dungeons and stuff, and actually put it into a format, which is cool. And I think this is a great format, and I think it's really cool. Great template, like Gabe was saying. Dude, switch things up if you totally want it. Like, go ahead, totally play around with it, see what you can do. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty neat. Pretty cool. Yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty nice. It's got room for anything.
Hey. Yeah, but no, I think this is a great system, and I think if also thinking of creative ways, creative places to apply this, not just a dungeon or whatever, right? Applying this to okay, look, I mean, even just applying this simple setup to a role-play encounter, right? I mean, that could really elevate that role-play encounter, right? Just taking this basic bare-bones concept of these 5 stages, essentially, and the players have to work through each one just in this role-play encounter, just in this conversation. I mean,
Yes, this could literally just be a single conversation.
Yeah, that would...
It's a format that you can change to fit any sort of
yeah
encounter.
That would, like, really enhance that role-playing encounter, really make it amazing, I think. I mean, if me as a player, we get to this role-playing encounter, and it kind of goes through each of these 5 stages, I mean, that's, like, insane. Like, that's awesome. That's, like, really memorable and cool, right? It only has to be, like, what, 15 minutes long, maybe, this whole encounter, this whole role-playing encounter? But if the GM has figured out a way to kind of, like, implement this, like, that's so awesome. And, you know, because this system works, right? A lot of people use it. A lot of people use it and love it. You know, why not use it for a little more unconventional things? You know, like a role-play encounter or something like that. Yeah, that's real cool. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this week's episode. It was a goodie one. It was kind of short, but I feel like we got a lot of conversation, good juicy stuff out of it. Gabe,
Socials, we got them. You got them too. Follow us, please. We like likes, and you like liking us.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah, all that kind of juicy stuff. Hey guys, next week is gonna be a juicy.
Next week is gonna be one that I'm really excited.
You guys, next week, you guys. Oh my gosh. Gabe, what's
Please
happening
don't leave
next week?
us. But next week's gonna be cool.
Gabe, what's happening next week?
Next week, this is when we start our new series, our replacement for class spotlights. Our classes revised. So, as we've stated before, this is the series where we go through the 12 core classes and revise them to rebalance them, make them more interesting in both combat and roleplay, and perhaps make them a little bit more complicated or advanced for players who are looking to get a little bit more out of their classes. And so we're going to start with Barbarian and lead on from there, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. We're going to be like making things up as we go along. We have some ideas already down on paper, but we're going to be making things and revising this class during the podcast so you can see our thought process.
Yeah, so it's gonna be really fun. I'm really excited. Definitely, if you're someone who kind of already understands the basics of D&D, is already familiar with the classes and such, I think it'll be really interesting. And definitely for those of you who've been playing for a while, you want new classes, you want something to you know, step up. That's what we're going to be doing, and each of these will be made available, I don't know how soon after the podcast episode, but will be made available as PDFs for you guys to find and download and to implement into your own games. So that's really cool as well.
Alright. Look out for that next week. And you can find more information on our Instagram and our Discord. Our Instagram's at D20 Academy. You know the drill. Go follow us.
Yeah, we got a YouTube.
Get into our Discord.
D20 Academy too. Go
We have
do
YouTube
that.
too.
Okay, thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week.